We're on it. We're on it today.
No count.
No count. That was just vibe.
Sin contar. I don't know how to say count in Spanish.
Cantar?
No,
it's not.
cantar is sing.
Your phone fell. We were really together today. Welcome to the Audio Link podcast. My name's Brandon, and this is
Tom.
I'm Ron Burgundy. Yeah.
Oh my
and
goodness.
we're going to talk about Tom's story a little bit, and a lot of it, actually.
A lot of bit.
A lot of it. And just kind of your life, what brought you to this point, and it's really powerful. And also, we're going to talk about an update with the company and what we're doing and, you know, all the goals, the vision, some of those things that is being unveiled to us as we traverse the path or the pathway to Mordor, so to speak.
Yes.
That's the
We
sixth.
make about 1,200 Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth references in this episode. So if you have any deep aversion to Middle-earth or you're triggered by Middle-earth for some reason, I would not encourage you proceeding.
No, it's only 5 or 6, but
It's only 5 or 6.
That's okay. They come at opportune times, so it's all right.
Yeah, they're pretty good references.
They
so
are, for sure.
if you're into that, I would highly encourage you listening to this episode.
Yes. And anyway, that's all we got. So go.
Here we go.
Just so everyone knows, we are recording this at 192,000 samples per second. Because this is an audio podcast, it should be the best it can be. So when we send these files to Gabriel for him to edit, it will take about a month to download.
We want this to sound absolutely absurd.
You will hear every single mouth noise, and every time I
hear
move
Brandon's
my hat.
beard.
Anyway,
We want you to be able to hear everything.
that's great. So if it sounds bad, we have no excuse.
Because this is at 192.
1,000.
This is probably the first podcast in the history of the world
That's true. Honestly,
recorded.
I don't think there's ever. I mean, whenever I first learned about sample rates, and 44.1, 48, 88.2, 96K, and then whatever the other one is that's double 88.2. I guess that's 100 and what is it? Mathing is hard. It's 88.2 times 2. And then 192K, which is 96 times 2.
Plus 8 plus 8 is 16.
This is very
176.
Yeah, it's 176. Yeah, that's right. I could look at the Apollo and it'll tell me. I've never seen the 192 light up on my Apollos,
Yes.
and here they are. It works. So,
That's why this sounds the way that it does.
which probably at this point is annoying.
It's probably annoying how good this sounds. You're probably like, dang it, why now I can't listen to any other podcast?
Everyone message Joe Rogan right now and tell them they need to up their game.
Yes, they need to actually hire us to go there and record his 2 microphones.
Yes. But it's really funny. We were just talking about like mixes and having good musical memories with mixes and stuff. And he had played Death and All His Friends by Coldplay from Viva La Vida, right?
Yes.
And
That's
tell
one of my
me,
favorite songs.
explain your experience with that song and why it's so powerful. Is it the hits? 2008, so it was pre-worship hits with Bethel. It was like...
Yeah, I think Worship Hits literally came from that song.
Yeah, probably.
Well, everything Hillsong United sounded as close as they could to that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like literally feel like the that like attic piano sound. You know what I'm saying? That's how I would describe that. Like the muffled.
It's not a patch, guys. It's a real piano.
Yes,
in an
we
attic.
just call it a patch, but like,
Yeah, they own all the instruments.
it is the patch though. Like it is the patch.
That upright piano.
Yeah,
patch.
yeah. That upright piano. I don't know. I feel like that Coldplay album literally like defined a lot of the worship music sound like Viva La Vida did.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the worship music sound.
I remember seeing that music video of Viva La Vida, and the guy's just like wailing on the kick drum and hitting the bell.
Yes.
Because
Because
he didn't have a snare drum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really good music. You know what? I don't think if Coldplay never existed, if Coldplay never existed, and if punk rock never happened, I wonder what worship music would have been.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because we picked the genre for how we were going to do worship music.
At some point, there was a committee.
There was a committee that picked the genre. It was
Joel
Joel Houston and Marty Sampson.
No, bro, it was not them two. It was Matt Redman. Chris Tomlin was too young. And
Matt
it was probably
Redman
it was
and
like
Darlene
Darlene.
Check. Yeah, they were all at a
Martin.
committee. It was the Council of
Bro,
Trent.
I have a funny story about Darlene. We were at the Sen
You know
at the
her?
beginning of February. No, I don't know her.
Oh.
But me and Jimmy Nichols, who's may or may not pay attention to this. He's a good friend. We were just talking. We were just talking by Monitor World because at the Sen we couldn't actually sound check in the main room. We had to sound check in a different hall, and so everyone was just in this area. And we were talking, me and Jimmy, and then Darlene walks up, and she just starts hanging out and talking with us.
Darlene Check?
Yeah. I was like,
You're famous?
I was like, you just, between you and Martin Smith, who's also playing with us, our set was so ridiculous.
You're pretty much Louvatar. Music exists because of you.
Nobody's going to get that. No one but me will get that, bro.
Dang it.
Irrelevant
If
joke.
you don't know who a Louvatar is,
Oh,
just
gosh.
go ahead and
No.
read the
Okay.
Silmarillion. Yep.
Okay. So that was such a deep cut. Anyway. Gosh. So Darlene's talking to us, and I was like, that you're between you and Martin, and that's the first time I'm ever mixing front of house for Martin Smith. I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's between them two, that's our childhood. That's everything that we were influenced by in worship was those two people.
Martin Smith and Darlene.
Modern worship was a direct result of them and what they sowed into the church. And anyway, so that was very important. And I think the most important thing that Darlene did was let young people lead.
No, okay, so I want to talk about this. I don't know if this will make it on the podcast, but I want to talk about this.
Let's hear it. We know everything's going to make it on the podcast because we're not the people who edit this. And everything ends up on the podcast.
Yes, everything got it. Okay, so here's the thing, something about Hillsong Church that's pretty remarkable to me is Hillsong Church just weathered this whole thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And part of the reason why is they were and are incredible at empowering people.
Yeah.
Hillsong. And I see everything that went down, and from a ministerial standpoint, I just see it as they multiplied so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So quickly. And they needed to appoint, like it says in the Bible,
Your
find
10s or 50s or 100s.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They needed to appoint because the reach of their ministry was huge. Every town, every city wanted access to that ministry and that well, right? Which was really their worship music.
Yeah.
But they wanted access to that, and they just started planting it everywhere because the quote unquote demand was so heavy.
Yeah.
Right? And
it was the first church that the music ministry and the worship ministry paved the way for the message.
oh my, yes, exactly.
Because no one knows who Brian Houston is without Darlene Check.
Correct.
And Hillsong Music and
Yes.
Hillsong Live. Remember that? Live.
Hillsong Live, dude. Did you have the DVDs?
I had all of the DVDs.
I watched all of them multiple times.
Yeah. All of them.
But I was thinking about the drummer then. I wasn't thinking about the mixes
Same.
because I didn't do
Exactly.
audio yet. Really?
Yeah, same. Yeah.
What's Rolf?
Rolf. Not Wolf.
That's what my memory had left.
I
Rolf.
believe he's Swedish or
Legend.
Norwegian.
Legend.
He's Scandinavian.
Legend. Rolf, if ever you hear this, you influence both of us.
I mean,
with your splashes, you're like 2 splashes that you had on Mighty to Save.
Yeah,
you had multiple splashes in the first verse.
Luke Munns was the drummer for United, and Rolf. At one point,
on before
they had a trade-off,
and
Rolf played on a lot of that stuff. But the Awesome God drum solo, or just the drums thing. Oh my gosh! I remember I got that CD and I played it in our youth room, and I turned the sound up so loud, and I was just like absorbed in this moment that happened. And that was the first record Sam Gibson mixed for them.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Sam Gibson goes back that
Look
far?
to You. Mm-hmm.
Look to You.
Because you listened to the one before, the record before Look to You, and it sounded nothing like Look to You.
That's an interesting point.
I remember listening to it like, wow, this is like really good.
We should just have a Hillsong episode where we just talk about Hillsong, because honestly, like, the impact they had on my life was absurd.
Yeah.
Absurd. Sure. Like Switchfoot and Hillsong.
Yeah, and Yellow Card. And
Coldplay, like, affected my life as much as any one.
That's awesome.
No, dude, that's great. Yeah, Look to You. I'll follow the sun. He's my only one. Was that on Look to You?
I don't remember.
Oh my goodness.
We got to go back and listen to it.
All those punk rock songs.
Yeah.
Very
Blink-182.
Yeah, but back to what I was saying. I feel like it's crazy because, like, Hillsong's actually doing really well.
Still? I don't know.
No, like, dude, this is what, like from a business standpoint, I've received it mostly from a business standpoint because I don't run a church or anything. But what happened was, like, they empowered people.
Yeah.
They just empowered people. But, like, when you empower people, like, people connect to people.
Yeah.
And, like, that whole thing, I mean, they took a gigantic shot, with the documentary and all the stuff. Mm-hmm. And
that
literally
thing on Discovery Channel or whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever. Which I'm like, what is the value of that? That's so terrible that people made that. Yeah, drama.
I mean, for sure, there's like, I'm sure that there are some valid claims made.
Oh yeah,
but everyone makes mistakes, and it makes mistakes, and people assume that there's absolutely no human element. There's no room for error. There's perfection, or there's nothing. You failed.
Yes,
and that's really not the nuance of humanity.
It's never there. Yeah. It's never that clean cut, but or rarely. But So, but the point is, what stood out to me a lot, what stands out to me and is amazing to me about Hillsong Church is, like, they're really doing well.
Yeah.
And they've stopped making it, like, about the music. Mm-hmm. They're just making it about, like, they've gone back to the grassroots of how it started, and I can feel that.
That's
and
cool.
Like, it's just like about about God and about pursuing God, and, like, grassroots about ministry, and it's just awesome to see. But it's interesting to me because they empowered people so well, to all the leaders out there. Like, if you want something to last far beyond you, empower people.
Yeah.
Because, like, they've empowered so many people, and, like, so many people, just quantity, like the pastors of all those campuses and stuff. Yeah. And, like, this whole thing went down. Those people are not ashamed to go to church.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, they're not that concerned with Brian Houston or whoever. Like, they're connected to their local church and their pastor. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And, like, those people are doing ministry and impacting lives. And it's like, people are getting saved and baptized every week at all those churches all around the world. And it's just amazing to me.
That's
you know
really
what I mean?
Powerful. Especially because, like, as churchy folk, like we are. Churchy folk.
Yes.
It's really easy to have an opinion on, like, the way things went down and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What does matter is the message of Christ being preached.
Yes.
Are people being changed? Are their lives being affected? And we forget that. We get so caught up in our political culture.
Oh my god.
Our politically driven culture. I am very aware of politics in my own life just because I commute 45 minutes, and so I have to listen to
tons of times.
Yeah, and I don't want to listen to music because I mix music all day, and I want to, like, have a silence or have someone talking to me.
Yes.
So it's really easy to have an opinion on things without remembering, like, that there are actual people who are actually hurt.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing with IHOP, like that's a horrible situation. It's a horrible situation. It's so tragic on every front.
Yeah.
And we forget that there are like, it's easy to just toss one side of this argument away.
Yeah.
Or just not value it. Or toss another one, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. The point is that there are people at stake, and that's really important. I remember thinking that, like, when this whole Brian Houston thing went down, I was like, wow, this is really sad for the church at large. It's really sad, and there's a lot of people who are gunning for the church to fail.
Yeah,
and the only way the church wins is with humility. We have to be humble,
correct,
because we're people.
Yeah, well, I've been realizing in this season of my life, like if you are on a daily basis and on an hourly basis, like in step with God and like communicating with God on an hourly, daily basis, like that, those things are not that important to you.
Perspective.
Yeah. And like, I think, I think for those that like that is a big stumbling block. If that is a big stumbling block, you haven't examined yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because like
when you take the Lord's Supper communion, it's like it says properly examine yourself.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Like, look at you taking the body and the blood without properly examining what that means.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if seeing anyone else's sin or shortcoming, right? Like if you've examined yourself on any level, any level, I feel like you see that and you're like, oh Lord, please just cover them. Like have mercy on them.
Yeah. Because
you think of yourself, like if you were exposed, what's in your heart was exposed, right? Because to God too, like it's just a whole, I don't know, my perspective, like a year or so ago compared to now on that whole situation. Yeah. I'm just like, yes, like to whom much is like given, much is expected, right?
Much is required.
Yeah, much is required.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like we're dealing with human beings.
Yeah.
And God knows that he entrusted his church with human beings to run it. And like he knows that, and he's going to power through all of that. That's actually his intention.
Yeah.
It's his intention to use humans. So when you see stuff go down, it's like
he can't use any more donkeys.
Yeah. He's done. He's not going to use animals.
Just kidding. Not that he can't.
Yeah, he actually did, but
that's the legalist.
I can't believe this is still recording at 192K.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I wonder if we're going to use any of this.
It's okay. We have it. We have the content. We have great real content.
Yes. Okay.
One thing I do want to say before it's kind of like leading into our topic.
Yeah.
Is there are people at stake.
Yeah.
There are souls at stake, right? And as much as we make it about us, we make it about like the sound and all these things, ultimately there are lives at stake.
Yes, human lives.
And the way that I grew up in church, and I was impacted on a core level, like the most core level, when I listened to music. Dude. And when I heard something. The old like sound guy joke is like the Lord said, let there be light, because the sound was already working. Like that sort of like,
it's so lame.
I think that there's something powerful because like that happens with sound, and I forgot for a long time like a core, like that experience that drew me into wanting to do this, and like play drums and make music and do sound eventually,
Yeah.
So just that perspective is really important to me. It's and that leads into like a lot of stuff we'll talk about, but yeah.
Well, I think a good way, I want to talk about our stories a little bit on this episode. And just because I don't think you really know someone until you know their story, like until you know how they got here, right? But
you drove here, right?
I actually took a...
No, don't just... Stop you right there.
My jetpack here.
Oh gosh.
My Boba Fett.
No.
So I was thinking recently, it's funny, because I was thinking on what day were we at church? Sunday morning. It was
Probably Sunday.
It was Sunday morning. Yeah, I usually go Saturday night, but Sunday morning. And like everything felt so great where I was sitting. And then you needed me to cover for a second, and I stepped in. And it was funny because the experience changes. Like, it's weird when that happens because you're in one headspace when you're like I was like fully immersed. Like, you were probably calling my name for a few minutes.
It wasn't a few minutes. It was like twice.
Okay. But the point is, like, I was fully engaged in the moment and with the Lord when you, like, called me. And
you're like, ugh, I don't want to get up.
No, it was fine. It was fine. I'm happy to serve. But it was funny when I got over to do the sound because I obviously I barely did anything, but when I like went into sound mode, to mixing mode, and it didn't sound nearly as good when I was listening as a mixer, which was interesting.
Yeah.
It didn't sound finished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which was fun. It sounded perfectly finished when I was sitting in the seats. But two, it actually got me thinking a little bit about this of like, what is it that like why I was just thinking like why I enjoy this so much. And I think the reason why I enjoy it so much, I remember literally the reason I got into doing sound. And like the reason I got into doing sound was one day and I was playing drums for youth service. And I remember who was doing sound. It was my friend who's in the Army now. And he had this giant afro. We just called him Fro. His name's Andrew. He was doing sound. No, he usually did sound, but he wasn't there that week. So they just kind of turned the board on, and then we were playing, and then I ran back to just make sure. They were like, Tom, can you run back to make sure it sounds okay? Like, that's how conscious we were of the sound. We were not conscious of the sound, what everyone was actually hearing.
Yeah.
And I went back there and I was like, oh, so-and-so, can you hit the drums a bit? And they were singing and playing. And I remember I put the faders up and I like made it sound how I wanted. And I like probably made the drums louder or something. Yeah. I didn't do anything with anything.
The drums went to 11?
Yeah. I just turned stuff up.
Yeah.
But I just remember the worship leader was like, oh my gosh, like, this sounds great. You need to do sound every week, Tom. And and
that's funny.
I just remember like when I turned the drums up, like getting that excitement inside.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, like music is amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was just so excited for youth service because I knew now that I had said it, like it was going to be amazing and everyone was going to be more excited. And like literally that moment is why I do, like I literally wouldn't even be in business, period, had it not been for that moment. Like sound was my gateway into business, you know?
That's funny. It's because we always say sound guys are control freaks. And I think that every sound guy has a story like that.
Yes.
It's a moment they fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And so many guys, like the 55-year-old sound engineer at your church with a long ponytail named Rodney. His name is Rodney.
Yes. Oh my gosh, dude.
Or, you know, like
how did you just crush that on Glenn?
Glenn. Man, to anyone named Rodney or Glenn, I'm sorry. You might have cliche names.
We love you. You definitely work at.
Yeah. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so funny because, like, at the beginning of that story, before Rodney was a 55-year-old curmudgeon, you know, like, you know that there's legitimate love somewhere in there.
That moment happened.
That got covered up by whatever else, like weird circumstances or, but you know that everything they're doing is an attempt to re-experience that love. So if you have that perspective, bro, like you have so much more, empathy for people and their experiences.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
yeah,
that's so, it just hit me. It's like, Yeah.
All of us have that experience. And like, all of us remember when we went to some concert.
Yeah.
You know, something about music, like it just literally hits you in a way, and you're just like, it's a feeling that you don't get from any other art.
You can't put up boundaries against music.
No.
Against sound. You can put in earplugs. That's true. But it still goes through you.
It just like
60 hertz. Bang.
Yes,
right
yeah.
you.
It's a physical and emotional experience, and you're just like, yeah, I don't know. I think that's why it's definitely why I've always been an experienced person. Like, I care about experience. Like, I care about the environments I'm in. Like, I care about experience for people. Being able to facilitate an incredible, like, emotion pulling experience is like, it is a serious gift and power that you have when you can like craft sound. Because think about like that Coldplay song that we were just listening to.
Yeah.
Like, it pulls all of this emotion out of you from like, like he had this story or moment that song came from, but then we like hearing it draw our own moments in our life.
Yeah.
And like relate to it and feel our moments. And they had nothing to do with his.
Yeah.
But
it's an emotional pay it forward.
Exactly. And like when you have the power with music, you have the power to do that. And with sound, you really do have the power, like, and the privilege to do that. And like when that is done for, and you're paying it forward towards the Lord, like you're telling everyone like, hey, look at him.
Yeah.
Come to him.
Yeah.
Like that's why you're doing sound. And like, it's incredible. Like I'm thinking about an end of year. Like that was just like incredible seeing, you know. And it's funny you mentioned Darlene Check earlier. Sorry, I keep talking, but
no, you're good, bro. I love it.
You mentioned Darlene Check, and I think the first moment I ever had where there was a mix I made where I was like, "Whoa, it actually sounds really good."
Yeah,
probably just because there was a lot of reverb. But there was just a lot of, you know, like I just heard
size.
It happen. Yeah, it was size, exactly. And we had just moved into the new building at my church, and the choir, we had a choir, like a 50-voice choir.
That's cool.
But with like a live drum set and like full band, do the song Victor's Crown.
Oh, yeah, bro. Darlene. Yeah.
Darlene.
Rolf played on that album.
I know. He's a legend.
He's a legend, bro.
Legend. And the splash. A Customs.
Yeah, bro.
He probably played K Customs.
Doing toms and then ending with the snare on the 4 is just always a win.
Yes.
Bah, snare.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that was Rolf.
Yep, that's going to be on Instagram.
Yes,
I'm
big
sorry.
time. But the point is, it was Victor's Crown, and I remember they went into the into the bridge.
Yeah.
Dun 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 dun, and then the choir came in.
Yeah.
Every high thing must come down.
Yeah.
And I remember I heard it, and like everybody lifted their hands, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." This is me doing this sound right now. This sounds amazing. I remember that moment.
This is because of me.
No, I wasn't thinking that. But I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I feel you.
That moment happens.
You're like,
where,
I'm a part of this.
yes, I'm a part of this. I helped facilitate this moment. And like everybody stood up. Everyone's hands were up. And it was amazing. Like I know so many people like just like encountered God, and
that's so cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Only
awesome.
Music does that. Dude.
Only music does that.
Yeah.
100% true. I was just kidding, by the way. Just the way you phrased it.
I wasn't offended. It was funny. That was kind of how I felt. I was like, I'm doing this. I'm driving this car right now that's going this fast.
You're like, it's like that scene from Ant-Man when they're having this huge epic battle, and then it zooms out, and it's like little train cars in their bedroom. You know? It's like, I'm driving this car, and then it zooms out, and Jesus is driving the car, and you have your little toy wheel.
Exactly.
In the passenger seat. Yeah.
No, it was a funny moment. I remember it so clearly, and it was on a Yamaha CL5. Yeah, I remember. And it's cool, man. Doing live sound is a lot of fun.
Yamaha is the most solid desk. They are the most
physically and like mechanically and digital and softwarely.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Dude, I have not had I had a one CL5 crash after I shipped it across the country. And it was just because we shipped it across the country in a crate.
I've never had any problems with Yamaha in general. Lucas has had several problems with Yamaha. And
regarding what?
I mean, like they wouldn't boot up or like software, firmware stuff. But he just like, and then once they turn on, they're fine.
I must say, Yamaha, the CLQL software update with the Dante firmware, you guys absolutely ended me with that. Once, I went into church to update the firmware on the consoles, and let's just say I left 48 hours later.
Yeah.
And because there was a service coming up that weekend.
So I don't know the details. I'm assuming there's a Dante update and then there's a CL5 update.
In every device.
Okay, so there's 2 updates. And nobody knows that. Right?
Yeah, it's in the videos that you guys made back in like 2014 and never updated.
Yeah.
But the problem is,
it's like when
I'm so bitter about
Fields
this.
has been posting about Behringer wings not having a manual. This is what this is.
This is exactly what this is.
That's funny.
If you've been through this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But here's the great thing. There's this dude named Andrew that has worked for Yamaha tech support for years, and he's a genius. And this dude, Andrew, he just knows everything.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him a ton of times, and he's helped me every time. But the problem is, I didn't know very much the first time I did that, so like his help could barely help me.
Yeah.
And I was the problem. And I had like Nexo power amps that needed it. I had so much stuff.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea what I was getting into, and it was just because I wanted the new premium rack plugins.
That's a good reason, though.
Yeah, I was once I wanted Waves, but I couldn't explain to anyone what Waves was. I was like,
Guys.
I'm gonna do more. It's processing. It's like plugins. They're like, why do you need that?
What are plugins? Plug into what? The wall?
I was just like, I need them.
Yeah.
Everyone has them.
Explain it. Oh, bro, dude. Okay, so tell me your story as if I don't know all the things about you, which I don't. But so just tell me your story.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll with pertinence to all of what we're here for. I guess with me, like my life has been the tale of kind of like 2 different stories. It was first me pursuing this. It's been pursuing things. I'm sorry, 3 stories. It's been pursuing things like full send. That's just like that. You could me.
Yeah.
And
There's no partial sends. There's only full sends.
Yeah, there was only full gas. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I always like this really long-term view of like my life and wanting that like end result that's like 20 years down the line and thinking about that every day, but what really brought me to where we are today and AudioLink and all of this, I feel like I could kind of do it like a song, like a well-written song where there's like a few key moments.
With like 3 or 4 bridges? Or
yes,
just
like
one?
Multiple bridges.
Oh, okay.
We're talking
2 choruses?
We're talking like 4 or 5 bridges.
You know those old 70s songs when they had like...
endless, like Elvis songs?
Yeah, like just another chorus. Like it was, but it's slightly different. So he had like one.
Those were the best.
Were they?
Dude, Bob Dylan.
Okay.
Boots of Spanish Leather.
This chair just squeaked mad.
It went.
Yeah. But it was like right when I was laughing, so I thought it made it look like I was squealing. No.
So honestly, I guess the best way to tell my story, I was like this single focused athlete person my whole life, and I wanted to play professional sports so bad, and I saw people in my family, like everyone did things pretty well in my family, and I had this expectation that I really needed to do things well, to be of any significance. And I think that was like a blessing and a curse for me, because it helped drive me like to do what was in front of me and to work hard and to focus on things. But also it began to connect to my identity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like
As
what
it does.
Yes, as it does, like what I did. So I'm going to try not to make this like an inner healing intro, but
No, it's good, bro. I'm here for it.
yes, great. So there was kind of like the baseball era where like I was just working at baseball a whole lot. It was my whole life. It was my whole identity aside from like music stuff I did in church. And outside of church was just baseball and sports. And I took a year off of high school. I unenrolled from high school. I was like the only person I knew that did that. Went to Dominican Republic, went to Florida, took a whole school year off, just trained, tried to get better so that I could get a D1 offer and stuff. And then when I came back, God just really like shut the door. And it was just a crazy drama I can't go into. But that was kind of like phase one. And when it ended, I felt like my whole life was like, had fallen apart.
You ever notice this? We just talked to your dad.
Mm-hmm.
He has the same story.
I know. It's like Abraham and Isaac with like that. Yes. Yeah.
Because we just, it will probably air by the time this comes out, but we did an interview with your dad, and he had like, it basically was like semi-pro baseball.
Yes. He was a much better baseball player than me, but yes.
And then had like a career-ending injury, basically.
Yeah.
Like in his like early 20s.
Yep. No,
like
it was
Story.
repeat. Yeah, it was repeat. And yeah, it was crazy, to see that happen, but through all of that, my like laser long-term focus had to like land on something. It was like the eye of Sauron.
Yeah.
It had to rest on something. And it just kind of went over. The only other thing I felt like I had any like gas behind was audio. I had started doing that in church after that moment, which that moment happened when I was like 14.
Oh, okay.
So all that being said, that kind of started me on the audio journey. And then right at the same time when high school was ending, we moved into a new building. Mm-hmm. We had, big PA system, nice big room, CL5. And it was just a canvas for me to like get after it.
Yeah.
And I went to SAE. It was cool. It definitely filled in the cracks of my knowledge base.
Yeah.
Because my knowledge base was all like in application immediately. Like I had no theory. And I like had a little theory behind it. So when I got into the business realm, like when I'm talking shop, I had a little bit more depth behind what I was saying. You know what I mean? But all that being said,
That's cool.
sound school route, and then they had just moved into that new building right when I left. When I was finishing school, I'm thinking I need to get on tour.
Yeah.
Mixing. And like we were just talking about, I had heard some live shows, some that like blew me away, and I was like, I'm nowhere near this. But I had heard some that were like pretty big acts that I was like, I'm not that far away from this.
Yeah.
I think I might be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, get on tour. So, find a way to get on tour. I was 19 at this point, 19 or 20, because I graduated high school at 17. So then my parents, they had moved into this new building. They needed a technical director because they bought all this gear.
Yeah.
So like literally I started working at the church part-time while I was in college. And then once I finished, it was a natural progression to come on full-time. And then once I was in it, like it felt engaging enough for like the technical side of me. I was mixing playback a ton. Yeah. We were doing big productions at the time. Yeah. I was like, okay, like this is
theatrical style.
Theatrical, yeah, like tons of stuff.
Learning
like
scenes, crossfading scenes.
Yes, I tried.
Time.
I tried to snapshot a whole production that I would always mix by hand, and it went terribly wrong. And the pastor got so upset at me.
Your dad?
No, not my dad. He got so upset, and we got in this argument, which I don't know why I was such a fool at that age that I even argued with him. I should have just said, yes, sir. But he was telling me to turn it down, and I had snapshotted the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of couldn't turn it down.
Oh, yeah.
And
so every time you would have seen it, bring it down.
Yeah, like, bring and on Yamahas, like, there's a whole, like, scene snapshot things aren't, like, as, like, nuanced as, like, Avids now and stuff. But it was this whole thing. It was
Yeah.
a throwdown afterwards. But
I did some theater stuff, like some theatrical stuff on an M7, and I used the scenes for that, and it worked flawlessly. Like if you just got to be
their
real
transitions are sick.
Yeah.
Like they're good.
Yeah.
It's just like the only issue is like making small adjustments
careful. Mhm.
where there was not that many options
And
with
you
like
couldn't easily update it. That's
Correct.
the problem.
exactly.
Yep.
So, long story short, it was like scratching the itch for me,
Mhm.
you know, and then I was kind of going like the pastoral route because I was there. I was really involved in the youth ministry, and they were like, "Hey, Tom, would you?" They actually asked me to like co-lead the youth ministry with this 35-year-old. I was 19
Yeah.
or 20, and this guy was 35-year-old professional basketball player.
Nice.
And him and his wife, and they're sweetest people. And we started co-leading the youth ministry together. But like the church was like in full swing. Like they would do like large productions like almost every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, or like 2 or 3 a year. And then on top of that, like tons of different ministries that had big events and weekly programming.
Yeah.
So as the technical director, like I was like doing a whole lot. Everyone kind of, expected me to help with it. And it was just a lot at that time. But so I started doing the youth stuff, and then, they were like, they kind of started shifting me more towards the youth stuff than even the technical stuff. Mm. So they hired another tech guy to like help support, and then he actually became the tech director. And for a short period of time, I was only the youth pastor.
Wow.
Or
Pastor Tom.
Yeah. I was still technically just the youth director because AG they don't throw pastor around very lightly.
True. That's true. I'm changing her name in my phone
to Pastor Tom.
Pastor Tom.
I'm literally not a pastor under any regard.
In my house, you are.
All right, thank you. So all that being said,
I ordain you.
Yeah, all that being said, it was in that time that, to make a really long story short, God started speaking to my wife and I in a crazy way. Craziest way of my whole life still. Yeah, I would say still. And God just like made it so clear to us in the middle of everything going really well. Like we were happy. It was cool. We had just gotten married, that we were supposed to go into business. And I was like, what? Like, it didn't make any sense to me because I felt like every story went the other direction. Like, businessman gets the call to ministry.
Yeah.
Like, that was the only story I had ever heard, like, waved around, you know?
Yeah.
But it was like the opposite. And it didn't really make sense to me because I had a very, like, small mind about what ministry was. And I mean, I had been in the church world since I was born, you know?
Yeah. You were literally born in the pew.
Practically, yeah. And that was kind of the beginning of this whole thing. And fast forward, Assembly started, which started out of me just helping people with their sound, really. A bunch of churches around town in Chicago. And that business grew, and we started doing projects around the country, and it was a lot of fun, and I got to like interact with all these people. And then pretty much at like the height of it, God called my wife and I to move to Dallas. And it was crazy because we did, it was one of those decisions in life that was like the right decision done the wrong way, and like, you wonder, it was one of those decisions too, where like, I wonder if God needed to kind of use my like foolishness and lack of wisdom, and like if that was necessary at that season because that's who I was. Mm-hmm. But also, it was a time of just humbling. This whole time coming over here was like going up from the mountaintop down into the valley. And it was like, okay, Tom, Olympia, I know who you guys are on the mountaintop and everything's going great. Yeah. But what about in the valley? Mm-hmm. And like, how do you know me then? And it was us coming to Upper Room
Yeah.
and just a rediscovery of God in that place. That's what the last, pretty much 2 years has been for us. And it's been the most beautiful thing for my family. And it's been some of the craziest times I've had in my life. Like, I thought when my baseball career ended, it was like the worst thing I could ever go through.
At 14.
Yeah. My baseball career ended at 18 or 17, whatever. And this was like, it was really, really difficult to experience like such change and, kind of loss and restructure of your life. But it's amazing because like something I've just learned from this season is God. Okay, so I was actually telling my sons at the table last night about The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, nice.
And
awesome movie.
Yeah, probably like my top 3-4 movies.
Yeah.
Like calling Lord of the Rings just one movie.
Pre-Jesus, Jim Caviezel.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I mean, need we say more? And
our wives are going to watch us be like, y'all are so nerdy.
Yes, because you're so lame. But what I was telling my sons about was, I was telling the story because like I referenced it to my wife, and then they were like, "What's that? What's that?" And we were about to eat dinner. I was like, "Sit at the table. I'll tell you about it."
Come.
Yes, come, children.
Yeah.
I felt like Bilbo in that beginning scene. Poof! They all turned to stone.
This is like the third deep Lord of the Rings reference.
Deep cut Lord of the Rings reference. Sorry, guys. So I've talked a lot here. So what happened was I was telling them how like he had this great relationship, woman he loved, and because his friend was jealous of him, he did the most unjust thing ever. Because he was so good to his friend. Like, he had no ill intentions towards his friend, but his friend was so jealous of him and had him thrown into prison for 11 or 13 years of his life. I forget it. I think it's 11 years.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, a long time. But the thing was, like, he got whipped once a year in that place. And he had nothing. But he was actually put about 10 feet away from the one person who knew where the treasure of Sparta was.
Yeah.
But not just that. The person that old man, Dumbledore.
Yeah.
that old man.
Dumbledore, I forgot.
Yeah, that was Dumbledore, dude.
Richard Harris, right?
Yes, yeah, I don't remember that actor's name, but he passed away after the first.
Yeah, that was
the
Richard
first
Harris,
Harry Potter.
Yeah. The fact that I know that, it's so obscure.
Yeah, that's pretty obscure.
I'm sorry.
But he was put at the well, at the mouth of the river, of the wealth of knowledge of this man. And when he came out of that cell, of that what should be suffering, unbelievable suffering, the man that he was and what he had been exposed to, he literally had treasure that was like, there was no other way ever possible that he would have wealth like that.
He was taught to read and write. And
he was taught to read and write, to fight everything.
Yeah.
But more than that, just the fact, the allegory of the fact that there was no other person in the world that knew where this treasure was.
Yeah.
And it was in that cell.
Yeah.
And I was telling them it last night, and I started getting hit. Like, I almost got kind of emotional thinking about it, because like, in a way, that's what this move has been for us. It's been like just kind of like going to the lowest in a way, and seeing that like in this, like Audio Link was really birthed out of this place. You know what I'm saying? Not just that, but the people like you and Stephanie and Lucas and the whole Gareth and the whole family at Upper Room were all birthed out of like what felt like me in a few moments, like a jail cell, like a Chateau d'If moment. You know what I mean?
Chateau d'If or
yes.
d'If?
Yeah, Chateau d'If.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful to God for it. But you know, all that being said, I now see a clear like vision in my life of it's encouraging when you see what God was doing.
Yeah.
like, and you don't see the end,
Yeah.
but at least like for this chapter, right? Like you see what God was doing.
Yeah.
Like you see why Sam, another Lord of the Rings reference.
Number 4.
Like why Sam was placed in the brush that night
Yeah.
while Frodo and Gandalf were discussing
The ring.
the ring.
Yeah.
Like that's why he was placed there, because he was going to bring him all the way there,
Yeah.
you know? And it's been beautiful.
Yeah.
And I feel like Audiolink is like, for me, and I feel like this about everybody on the team, like it's the culmination of, I've said this to you already, but it's like the culmination of all of our experience and life and skill sets and like everything that's special about us in our work that we do, which is just one part of us, but like in the work that we do, all the like really special things are like all put into practice in this unique way.
Yeah.
That's all connected, and it's amazing.
It's cool because it's so easy. Like everything we've done has been just paved with grace.
Yeah.
It's been like the Lord has put every step ahead. And it's so cool because nothing that we've ever done has ever been that easy. Like it's just
nothing in my life.
Natural. It feels like it should be, you know? And
that's so true.
There's a lot to be said about that. But you can keep it simple.
It's the wind. It's the wind of the Spirit. I literally was listening to Bethel Starlight this morning, the song Catch the Wind.
Yeah.
And I got so emotional hearing it because I was like, it's such a unique song. It's so different.
Yeah.
But I understood it so well today when I heard it, because it's like something like, your faithfulness will never let me down. I'm confident I'll see your goodness now. And then, you know, like ultimately I'm going to catch the wind.
Yeah.
I'm going to catch the wind.
Yeah.
And it's catching the wind of the Spirit. But like part of the wind of the Spirit, like it comes behind you.
Yeah.
And it just like the sails or like wings.
Yeah.
It blows you forward and pushes you forward in your life towards your purpose and where you're going. Like that's what the wind of the Spirit does. And it's only when you come into alignment with God and with his plan.
The proverbial jet stream.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Like you have to come in alignment. And it's like, it's when you experience that, like I feel so much confidence, despite the battles, the struggles, the mistakes we've made already, like difficult weeks, is like when you feel that behind you, you're just like, oh my gosh, God is in this. We are where we're supposed to be. We're right in the jet stream. You know, it's amazing.
It's so profound because like it's not easy, but it's great. It's like covered in grace.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Dude.
Like it's not easy, but it's covered in grace. But you have the power to do it, right?
Things can be really difficult and really good and feel good.
Yeah.
You know, at the same time when like when it's happening from the right place, but also like when God is just like in it and you know that, you know.
I think it's good for your perspective to have
regurgitated that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like sometimes you don't know what God does in a season for you until you share your testimony about it. And that's really powerful.
So where are we at today with the company?
Ooh, you answer that question. My wife is blowing up my phone.
Really? She's like, why are you not home? It's 11 o'clock.
Oh, dang. She said, what's the ETA? Well, babe.
Well, Tom is just getting into his last point.
Ooh.
So where are we today? Here's where we are today.
R&D. That's where we are.
Yeah. No.
Just kidding.
Yeah, we have our first group of let's just say we go in terms of seats, right? So we're thinking how many engineers are mixing on a Sunday. We don't really base it on how many different churches. Yeah. Because some churches have us mixing front of house and broadcast. So that could be multiple. So right now, we are right around 15 seats, and we are at this stage of like, we have a group of customers that are extremely happy with the service.
Yeah.
And like some sizable churches that are like blown away by the service. And it's like, it hasn't been flawless.
Yeah.
Because it is live sound.
Yeah.
And like the things that happen in
There's
live
a lot of
sound.
externalities, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know that even with, any of them, with the ones that are going really well, that like, I don't know how many I would like of the flaws. Something I've been trying to kind of add up is like, okay, if we just had these engineers mixing in person, how many of these issues would we be having?
Yeah.
I would probably say like 80%.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
We would still have most of those.
We would
issues.
still have these issues because we're dealing with.
So what you're saying is the person in the room or not is not really the main thing.
Is not really the main
factor.
thing. I feel like maybe 20% has been like communication or this or that, or like, a feedback thing that wasn't heard. But that was, I feel like I have barely had any of those. So point is, I feel like the concept so far, we've seen it work like between, incredibly well. And we're now trying to sort out, okay, we feel like my last Lord of the Rings reference.
Oh boy. It's number 5.
We've kind of like gotten to Rivendell and we're like, wow, this is a real journey, but it's either like going back or we're going to Mordor, and we need to get the dream
The
team
Council
together.
of Audio Guys.
And that's literally where we're at right now. It's like
the Council of Elrond.
we need everyone in our lives.
Yeah.
We need everyone in our lives to be a resource at this stage for us to like take this journey to Mordor,
For sure.
And everyone has to be fully on board if we're going to do something this meaningful. And there are going to be so many moments of like dissatisfied customers, dissatisfied engineers, dissatisfied us, like difficult moments. And it's like, okay, well, like what are they compared to the ultimate purpose of this? And how do we get through that, do our best, and like make sure that we can see this through?
Yeah.
I think that's the difficult part about this stage, because like we are still like infants trying to find our way in this, even though like we know a little bit about sound, and it's difficult when things go wrong, because it's like, well, if I was doing this, it would not be this way. This is not a good representation of me. But it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about the like, I mean, to me, it's not about that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that.
No, that's.
Would you say that's an accurate representation of where we're at?
I think so. There's the biggest part is, that we've established that the ring needs to be destroyed.
Correct.
The ring being the perception of sound in the church. Specifically the church.
Elrond has spoken.
Yeah. And maybe not just the church at some point, but right now, this is where we feel called.
Yes.
And, that's how it is. So, the next steps, I feel like are like there's any number of directions we could go.
Yeah.
That all kind of lead the same way. It's just which mountain do you, or which little battle do you fight first? And, like having the right people at the right church, right engineer mixing for the right church. The first couple weeks, like the engineer learning the church, learning what they do, learning the habits.
That is a process that we're working out.
Yeah, because it's not like as obviously it's not as clear as it should be a lot of times, because there's not been a lot of really good sound or good high expectations of the church until they see, like, we're talking a huge game, so we
are talking a huge game.
Like, we are bringing high expectations. And so, like, actually understanding all of the nuances that go into the product that we're selling, like it's
dude,
not on a hardware level or a skill level. It's on a relational level.
Well, I would
100%.
equate it to this. The closest I could equate it to in my life is if there was like a nanny or babysitter that was like the best one in all of Texas.
Yeah.
And said,
America, the world.
Yes, and if my wife and I hired that babysitter to watch our kids, we have a way that we conduct our house and our kids and their bedtime routine and this, that, and the other. And our kids are particular and they do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
So pretty much.
My kids are not.
Yes, but they do just about the same thing every day. They have expectations. We have expectations.
Yeah.
And if we were to bring that babysitter in or nanny, even if they were like had a PhD in childcare, whatever it is, the first couple of days, the kids might wake up in the night because they're thrown off or wake up too early or throw a fit or this or that or not eat their dinner just because it is new. And this is a thing that happens every week. And now we're introducing this new thing into it.
Yeah.
And like, even if they're going to be the best babysitter we've ever had, there's an element of like new. And I think that's going to be the thing that's really difficult because church is so consistent.
Yep.
It's been happening. Anyone that's hiring the service did not start yesterday.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's like we're in large part like the way a church to get introduced to AudioLink is through their dissatisfaction. You know, and that's
correct.
Like, so there might be more willingness to introduce new change, but like you can talk about it all day, but the moment that you're sitting there and you turn back around and there's nobody in the booth, you know, like that's when it hits the fan. You're like, wow, what is this? And then you get nervous, and then there's all these things, and that's where the relational part comes in. Because you think, like, oh, were you actually uncomfortable, or were you just not used to it? You know, like, was there actually a problem, or was it like maybe a perceived issue that wasn't actually there?
Correct.
You know, like, are we saying there's a boogeyman in the closet when there's really just your clothes?
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
So those are things that are managed and stewarded by relational equity. And so a large part of what we're doing is emphasizing relationship, and like these early adopters that we have, like I'm just trying to, like, you know, like we're learning how all of these nuances work as you are. And this is what everyone's going to have to go through on some level. As we grow, that gets way more smooth. Those things get easier. The expectation is largely perceived already, and a lot of that stuff gets worked out on its own. But still, it's like when Elon slept on the floor of the Model 3 factory for 3 months to figure out why this thing isn't working, and then throwing out parts and rejiggering it, you know, like trying to figure out exactly where the issues were. And that's where we are.
But what I believe is two things. One is Alex Hormozy, this video he was just talking about, like how they did this like experiment where they had, did I send this to you?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Where they had like two groups, like one had to make one clay pot as perfect as possible, and one had to make 20 clay pots. And the one that made 20 clay pots actually made them all, they made 20, but also they made all of them were better quality.
All of them.
All of them were better quality than the one, because volume actually works out problems, because you have to systemize things on a deeper level. You know what I'm saying? And I think for us, that's a reality as we get more mass, you know what I'm saying, and momentum, and we learn what we're doing. I think also my appeal to everyone watching this, if you are checking this out and you're like interested in AudioLink or whatever, and you've somehow listened this far in this.
Somehow. Through 5 Tolkien references.
Yes, you survived all of them. Here would be my thing. I think the church, the sense and intuition I have in me is that there is a desire for quality of sound. Even for the one who doesn't really know what that would sound like. There is a desire for quality. It's like, I don't just want more furniture in my house. I want nice furniture that people will enjoy looking at and sitting in, right? And like, that's, I think people need to consider that desire and that value that it presents. Like, what is the experience of God's house when the furniture is nice and comfortable to sit in? That's kind of what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Not like that Audio Adrenaline song from the 90s. Big house.
I heard them live once, but we'll talk about that much later.
They needed audio link, didn't they?
They needed audio link. The low end almost actually made me vomit. I distinctly remember that.
Yeah. But it's good to know where your problems lie, you know? That's like the biggest benefit of being small, you know, or being at this beginning stage.
Yeah.
It's because it gives us time to really be super intentional with our efforts.
Yeah. Seeing one or two or three, I mean, it's more than that already, but seeing a handful of customers really happy, seeing their lives change, so to speak, like in how their church runs and how their services run, it's all I've needed to see.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, we can do this at scale. The question is how long will it take for us to really work all these things out? And I'm trusting God's going to help us with that. But
yeah, it's true.
This was a lot of fun and a lot of talking.
It was.
But this was probably the best conversation we've ever had. Not even close, but whatever.
It's good. It's good. I want to just say in general, general thoughts before we end, that the Hobbit trilogy is so bad. I'm just kidding.
I'm so happy you were kidding about that because it's not that bad.
No, I'm really excited. I feel like we are on the cusp of something new and something fresh, and I don't know. I'm just very inspired, and I feel like a divine sense of wind, you know, behind what we're doing, and I'm very excited about it. And it's truly an honor, you know.
We're just trying to catch the wind here.
Catch the wind. That's our theme song.
I am super excited too, bro. And it's crazy. I feel like everything has come together partially for this, you know, like in part for this. And it's like, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like in the end, but it's incredible to see the vision when I first met Gabrielle and Brazil first,
at Lucas's wedding.
At Lucas's wedding, Brazil crossed my mind when I met Gabrielle, and now here we are, 9 engineers mixing this past weekend. I mean, in Brazil, I just can't imagine. I couldn't imagine all of that happening, and it's just incredible to see. So God has already put legs on so much of this, and we will see what happens, and we will keep updating you guys on what's going on as we also talk about just stuff that we're interested in.
This is like the first real update that we've given.
Yeah, we're going to do this. We'll see how often we do this, but we want to update you guys without you getting too scared and running away. I'm joking.
Are you joking?
I'm mostly not. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes.
Yeah, this whole thing, we're at 93 minutes since we started recording. 192. Okay.
Can we just give a hand to Steve Jobs and Tim Cook for making a computer that can do this? Well done, Steve.
Yep. Steve is dead, though. It was mainly Tim.
Tim?
Yep.
Well done.